I'm Andrea Isabel Lucas, founder of Bar and Soul and author of Own It All. The Own It All podcast is all about how to stop waiting for change and start creating it because your life belongs to you. Every week, I interview inspiring women and they share their tips about how to own it all in the various areas of your life, like career, time management, health, style, and relationships. Tune in every week so they can share their advice with you. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review in your favorite listening app. Hi, welcome to the Own It All podcast. I'm Andrea Isabel Lucas, and today our guests are Nick and Katherine North. Welcome, you guys.
Hey.
Hello, hello.
So by way of introduction, you guys have been married about 2 years. You have 3 businesses, 2 ex-partners, 5 kids, amazing friends, a documentary in the making. All of this has been unfolding while you've been navigating Nick's transition from female to male. And through it all, you guys, I would say, are masters at navigating relationships and communicating clearly and honestly. It's an honor to have you. I'm not sure what I missed, probably something in that introduction.
We just got a puppy.
Oh.
Just to make things less exciting.
Yeah.
I know. Honestly, 5 kids is really not enough responsibility for anyone.
Things were kind of quiet.
Yeah, but we couldn't fit any more in the car. So we were like, how can we do this legally and safely? A dog will do.
You know, this might sound a little funny to lead with, but if you don't mind, I actually would love to start by talking about your recent name changes because I'm paranoid I'm going to call you guys by the wrong name at some point here. And so I just want to get that out in the open right now. Name changes all around. I don't even know who wants to start.
I'm going to start because I'm like, well, I'll just start.
Go
I'm
for
bossy.
it, dude.
What happened was I changed from female to male. I transitioned and started living as my true self. And so that obviously I required a name change. And I was living with my ex-husband's last name. And so it was like, oh, I have to make choices here. I have to decide who I'm going to be and what I'm going to be. And that sort of opened up this conversation, I think, for Katherine to also say like, oh, well, if you could do it, why can't I do it? Mm-hmm. So that's sort of like how the permission happened. But lovely wife, if you want to tell the backstory.
Sure. So, Andrea, you said I can swear. So I am feminist as fuck. I have made many vows to myself that I would never take a man's name. And when we got married and we started to talk about Nick changing his name, I suddenly realized that for the first time in my life, I really actually wanted to have the same last name as my husband. But it would have been really weird for a bunch of reasons if I had taken his married name. Also, I did not like the symbolism of that.
And also, it would be really weird if I took Katherine's last name because then my name would be Nick Kuneke, which is a lot of hard Ks.
Yeah, it doesn't sound good.
I am not opposed to taking her last name. It just wasn't really like a
aesthetic.
It didn't feel like me.
Yeah.
Aesthetics are very important to both of you. So I appreciate it.
We're vain people and we like pretty things.
And we admit it.
No shame. Yeah. So it opened up this conversation about what would we do? And one day I was doing dishes, I think. And I was like, I wish we could just make up our own last name. And we kind of looked at each other and we were like, oh, wait, we can do whatever we want.
We can totally make up our own last name.
And there's sort of this secret backstory about my first name that's very sentimental. And as much as I loved my birth name that my parents gave me, it's a lovely name. Secretly, deep down, I had always felt like it wasn't completely me. And I felt like I had this other kind of secret name. And one day, very early on in our relationship, we were having this conversation, Nick and I, about names. And in retrospect, I realized that he was probably trying to open the door to talk about, like, do you ever feel like you're not who people think you are? Like, gee, maybe do you think that I'm not actually a woman? I'm supposed to be a man? I missed that completely. And I said, actually, I do sometimes. I secretly have this, like, secret name that I kind of think of myself as.
And then I was all, hippy dippy woo woo. I was like, it's Katherine. I just feel like that's what your name is supposed to be.
And he's like, but with a C or a K? And I was like, oh, K, definitely K for me. And then I looked at him and I was like, what just happened? What? And he was right. It's Katherine. with a
I just
K.
got goosebumps. That's so like freaky.
It was freaky. And it's one of those things that like we kind of hesitated to even tell the story because we're like, it sounds like we're making it up, but true story. That is actually what happened. So he became Nick. I wanted to become Katherine, and we decided together to take the last name North. And here we are. It's been this really empowering experience for me. I know about it.
I'm like so excited. I have butterflies just like listening to this story. When I ever got your email being like, new name, guys, I just was like standing up and cheering. I was so excited because this isn't something, I don't know that many people that have done this, but I have done this. And so I was like, oh my God, it's another person that chose their own name, another two people that chose their own name.
Yeah.
And so I did the same thing. So what happened for me was that I was going through a divorce, and honestly, and you'll read about this in the book, but I always had a difficult relationship with my father. I had a difficult time in my marriage. I'm a huge feminist as well. And it felt really yucky and patriarchal to think about changing my last name at the time of my divorce to go back to my maiden name, because I felt like, what am I fucking changing hands from like my husband back to my dad? Like, you know what I mean? Like, am I going back to like live on his farm somewhere? Like, I don't know. Like, it just seemed very like antiquated and not me at all. And I just felt like, why the hell should I? I mean, I didn't want to keep my married name. I really didn't want my maiden name back. And in fact, it kind of came with an old identity that I didn't want to go back to for me. And just an old way, an old version of myself that I wasn't anymore. And so I had this brilliant idea. Because my uncle had done a lot of genealogy work on my mom's side of the family. I was like, I'm going to pick like a matriarchal last name. I'm going to look at my family tree and go down my mom's lineage into like as far back as like my greatest grandmother that I could find. And I'm going to use that name. But when I opened the family tree and I did that, I came to a name that I kind of couldn't even really pronounce. And aesthetically, I just didn't like it. Like you guys, aesthetics are also, I'm also incredibly vain. So I was like, no, that's not going to work for me. So what I did instead was I just picked names that I liked out of my family tree off my mom's side. So I picked both Isabel and Lucas, which were both surnames that existed in that tree. And I thought about just being Andrea Isabel, and then I thought, I don't know, it'd be kind of confusing to have a first name for my last name. So I thought Lucas will be nice. It'll be super easy. I won't really have to spell it, even though everyone still asks me to spell it, which I find strange. But yeah, so I changed my middle and last name to Isabel Lucas. And if anything, to be honest, I was expecting that people would think I was being like a prima donna and that I was just being like, you know, weird diva or something, but nobody gave a shit. Like people really didn't bat an eye. I'm so glad I did. And to be honest with you, like if I were to go back and do it again, it's like, shit, would I have changed my first name? Maybe. Like, you know, really choose something that fully came from me and like the identity that I've kind of developed into. So yeah, I was so pumped to see that you guys had done that. And I just wanted all of us to have a chance to talk about that, because there's probably so many people out there that it has crossed their mind and they just think like, well, I can't do that. I'm not like Prince, you know, or Madonna or something.
Right? Like, oh, wait, are you even allowed to do that? Like someone actually said, they're like, wait, is that even allowed? You know, like, yeah, guess what? We're allowed to do pretty much anything we want. We're grown-ups.
The best part was that one of the people that asked that to me, that was like, was it even allowed? Like about Katherine changing her first name, is the same person that was like, wait, you mean your coffee cups and teacups just have a random letter on them and it's not like that letter doesn't mean anything? And we were like, yeah, no, we just like the color of the teacup and it had a letter on it. And they were like, you mean I don't have to only get whatever letter their first name started with on all my things from now? Like I could just choose to have a different letter on my things. And it was like this, I think that people kind of come from one realm or the other where they're like, I can do anything I want. And of course I can. And look how brave you are for doing that. And then there's another subsect of people who have been like, I don't know, that's weird. I don't know. I don't know if I can do that. And we're like, okay, well, cool.
You don't have to.
You don't have to. But then then like 2 minutes later, they call you the right name and you're like, see, you did it. Look. So it's not always like rave reviews and excitement, but the people that matter, I think, matter, and they come along and fix it if they need to.
I totally agree with you. And like, there's always going to be people who don't understand or, you know, or don't get it or who don't support any life decision, but you can't live your life worried about what those people are going to think. I mean, nobody is for everybody, right? So you just try to find your people that you can really resonate with and who do get you.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. And I was not worried about what kind of people out there, the public people, thought, but I was worried that I would hurt my parents' feelings because I adore them and they are just the most wonderful people. And so that for me was the big like stumbling block. And they were wonderful. They were like, well, we're probably, mostly going to forget and keep calling you your old name. And I was like, that's fine for me because I loved my old name. It wasn't that I hated it or that it didn't feel true to me anymore. But they were warm and understanding, and it turned out to be not nearly as big of a deal as I had been afraid it might be.
That's beautiful. I actually had that exact same fear. And interestingly, like around the time that I was changing my name was around the time that my dad actually was diagnosed with cancer, and he only lived for 6 weeks after the diagnosis. So like, so like it was all very accelerated and I just didn't tell him. It was like, he doesn't need to know. Like, I'm not going to say anything that might hurt him in like his final
doesn't help
days.
anything.
No, exactly. So I just didn't share it with him. And as far as my mom, like she was the one who said, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. That's not who you are anymore. So yeah, she totally got it. So many things that I want to ask you guys about. I want to just start by asking, like, you have so many people in your life who need things from you, like obviously your kids, your friends, your clients, each other. How do you attend to everybody without completely burning out? What are your secrets?
I'm much more needy. So let's just call it how it is, a spade and whatnot. I am the needy one out of the two of us. But Katherine is the one that is needy in solitude and fill back up more, I think. In other ways, the difference is that like I fill back up in relationship to her. I'm like, oh, like she's my soft place. And that's how I fill back up and with being together and connecting and things like that. Intimacy, whatnot. And she fills back up by being apart. And so I think our biggest struggle as a couple is the juxtaposition of that, is like balancing her ability to fill up on her own. So then she has something to give to fill up together. And I think the first year and a bit of our relationship, most of our fights came down to us not realizing that that was the dynamic that we needed. That like, oh, she fills up alone and I fill up together. And so she has to like, we have to keep both full in order for it to like work as a cycle. And so it's a lot of like really honest conversations and a lot of like, can you stop doing that and pay attention to me now? And then her be like, oh yes, why didn't you just say so 20 minutes ago, resentful one? And me being like, oh, it's hard to speak my feelings. And then her having to be like, I need you to go away and have alone time now. And that has to be like, there has to be space for that for her too.
One of the best things that we've ever done is to kind of just set up some parameters ahead of time so that we're not always having to negotiate it in the moment. So for example, we try and go away once every quarter, just the two of us. And that kind of romantic, partner marriage connection is really, really important. But I also need to go away about every quarter for a couple days on my own. And if we kind of just like acknowledge that that is just something that has to happen and we kind of look ahead and we block it into the calendar, that takes a lot of the angst out of it because it's just something that's happening. It happens on a regular basis. We've already agreed that it will happen. And that helps me not wait until I'm so empty and so fried and so kind of burnt out. And then from that place, be like, oh my God, I have to get away. Right? I can be a lot more gracious about it if we're talking about something that's going to happen 3 months down the road. And then that whole 3 months, I know it's coming. And so when I do feel tired or when I do inevitably start to feel burnt out, something that helps is to know that like, okay, but in 2 weeks, I'm going to have this weekend away by myself, which is going to be really deeply nourishing to me. And I think for you, for Nick, once we kind of agreed that we would also try and do something, just the two of us, that was more than a date night, but, at least a night away, that helped you feel like it took away the scarcity. Right. And so then you were able to be much more gracious with me and be like, go, babe, go take your days, fill up, don't text me if you don't want to, I'll see you when you get back.
Because you don't have that anxiety of like wondering if your needs are going to get met. Like, Yeah.
And then, so we do that on the big scale with the big things. And I think that we do that on we have little things built in like that as well. So, and this kind of breaks into like, duties and things like that. But if we're just not going there yet and just thinking about time ways, like I get up with the kids in the morning and Katherine typically sleeps in and then has time to journal and like wake up slowly and drink tea. And she doesn't get up until like 9 o'clock. And I've already been up for hours and done all the things and the kids have gone to school and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I get to like not be on, and she does the like cleanup. I cook dinner and then she cleans up after dinner, and she's primary parent after dinner. And then after that, from 7:30 to 8:30, she has an hour of alone time where I putz around and do whatever. And then we connect again for an hour at the end of the night. And that's like sort of our built-in thing. And if I choose to join her to watch a TV show because she's watching a TV show for her alone time, I can do that, but I can't talk to her while it's happening.
And it might sound like, oh, wow, they have a lot of rules. But we've found that actually just having really clear expectations and sort of putting boundaries around the different kinds of time has actually made both of us feel a lot more relaxed and a lot more free. Right. And then I just know that, like, you know, at 3:00, or 2:45, we pick up the kids, everybody gets home, it's chaos, and I am on, right? I had that time that morning. I got to work because we have childcare, which I'd love to talk more about too. But then like I'm primary parent. I am managing everybody's feelings. I'm making sure they put away their lunches. I am making the lunches again for the next day. And it kind of helps for each of us to have like a period of time when we know we're on. And then also we get that period of time where we can guilt-free be off, you know? So Nick can be in his office peacefully reading something, and I'm running around the kitchen with like a chicken with my head cut off. And that's okay because we had that opposite experience that morning. And I think it lets each of us kind of relax and receive the downtime, and then also be fully on when we need to be on.
That sounds like a great system.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that there aren't like there's not room to negotiate. It's like if I'm having a busier week or if Katherine's having a busier week, we'll often like be like, okay, I'm going to handle after school so you can work longer, or I'm going to like, if one of us have had a rough night with the kids, then she'll get up in the morning instead of me, or some version of that. She normally actually gets up in the middle of the night with the kids. So that's, she's on in the middle of the night. I'm on in the morning. We sort of have like all these switch off spots, but it just gives us all these parameters that we can then negotiate within. None of it is rigid. It's just like the base parameters. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is just like that kind of operating system to work from. I mean, what's coming to mind for me is like, this is true partnership. This is what we hope for in a partnership, is that like, there's that give and take. And it doesn't mean like, I remember at one point when my kids were younger and getting everybody off to school in the morning was like more of a thing, that at one point with my partner, I had said like, well, I need you to like get up more, you know, and like help more in the morning. But then like he'd get up, but then I was up and he didn't really know how to help, or like he just felt like he was in the way. And then we realized like, well, this is stupid. Why don't we just trade off every other morning? And then because that way, like it was like, you know, nobody was getting to enjoy themselves during that time. Yeah. And then when we started to trade off, it's like, okay, now this is great. Like, I don't mind you not helping me today because tomorrow you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And when we actually first blended our families, we were both like, oh, this is so great. I don't have to do the mornings on my own anymore. And we started maybe the first school season we did entirely together, and every fight, all of our very worst, terrible fights happened literally in the car after school drop off because we just hated each other by the end of it.
It's so true.
Because we're both used to being the captain of the ship. We're both used to like setting the tone. The way our values are the same. The way we would get to the end result is different. And so we were just clashing. And she hates the mornings so much. And I actually really like the mornings, that I was like, you are ruining my morning. Every effing day, you're ruining my morning with your shitty attitude. And she was like, but it's the mornings. And then at the end of the night, I'm the one that's like grouchy and the kids can't get to bed fast enough. And she's like, if you would just go away, everyone would be happier. And so we've just like negotiated like out of the areas. And then like now when I am present in those times, it's because I want to be, and I get to like do the fun stuff with the kids during that time instead of be the grouchy heavy.
Perfect. I know it sounds, and you're right. Like you've got to have some flexibility there, but you do have that, and you have a system that works. That's amazing.
And I think that it's easier for us to have that system that works because I have the experience of both having lived fully as a mom, a stay-at-home mom, a working from home mom, a work out of the home mom. I have all of those experiences, and I know what it's like to carry the mental load of being the mother.
Mhm.
And so I would never ask Katherine to put that solely on her.
That is really huge. And I will say that kind of did cross my mind when we were just talking about the morning routines, how I was saying, like, I wanted my partner to get up and help. And as, three feminists having a conversation, like, we all know
Uh-huh.
that, like, there's actually sometimes a problem with the concept of looking at it as help, because if you're in a partnership and you're co-parenting children, it's not the man helping the woman because it's the woman's job and she needs help. It's like actually
Mhm.
dividing the responsibility. And I was just chatting actually with a friend about that this week and saying that, like, one of the saving graces of my relationship, which is now an 11-year relationship, is that actually my kids are his stepkids. They are technically mine. So, like, I do actually feel like they are my responsibility and he is helping me. I will say if they were his kids, like, I probably wouldn't use words like help. You know what I mean? Like, and I would have a much higher
Mhm.
bar for how much I was expecting him to contribute. I think that has probably saved our relationship and kind of saved his ass a little bit.
I can
Yeah.
totally see how that would be. And I think, we're a blended family, like so many families are these days. And it definitely brings a different kind of challenge into kind of the logistics and also sort of that emotional weight that we carry for our kids.
Yes.
And we were lucky when we got together that our kids were all little enough that they really do all feel like our kids jointly. But I know that that's a fairly unique position to be in. And it's not like that for everyone.
Absolutely.
Having those hard conversations where you work out this kind of
Mhm.
stuff can feel so scary, but gosh, man, coming out on the other side of them also is exhilarating.
Mhm.
Is this an appropriate time to ask you about your number system?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Woo!
would be a great time. Yeah. So the number system is basically the way that we stop ourselves from having arguments over things that don't matter, and a way that we decide how we're going to approach a disagreement, I think.
Mhm.
So basically, the idea is that, like, we found in the beginning of our relationship that we were getting caught in, like, scuffles about things that were like, and we'd realize, like, wait, I don't actually give a shit about this. Why are we even fighting about this thing? Because we were fighting about things because, like, she'd be like, what do you think about this? And I'd be like, oh, you've asked my opinion. I'll tell you. And my opinion is right. And she would be like, oh, my opinion also right. We're stuck. But then we realized that, like, we were fighting about things that matter on, like, a 3 scale. Or we were fighting about things that to her were like a 9. And to me, I didn't care at all. They were like a 1 or a 0. And so why am I even fighting? Only because she asked my opinion on it, not because I really care. So what we started to do was how much something matters to me. A 10 is like, it's a deal breaker. Our relationship is over. We have to separate. A 0 is like, I truly don't care. A 1 is like, if you force me to have an opinion, I can choose. And then, like, a 5 is like I feel kind of strong about this, but, like, I could be taken either way based on evidence or facts, or tell me your story, that sort of thing about it.
Yeah, it's eliminated so much of kind of the day-to-day arguments, because often we'll start to talk about something and one of us will be like, wait, what is this for you? What number is this for you? And the other one will be like, it's like a 2 or a 3. And the other one will go, oh, it's like a 7 or an 8 for me. And in light of that really crucial information, often we'll be like, oh, great, you have this one. I don't care. So it lets us give our partner the things that really matter to them when it's like an easy give. And then sometimes, of course, what'll happen is one of us will be like, this is like an 8 for me. And the other one goes, this is like an 8 for me too. And, it's always sort of daunting when that happens, but it's also so useful because then we know, like, okay, this is a really big one. This is important. It matters to both of us for, probably all kinds of complex, deep primal reasons. So it means that we need to approach it with some care, right? We're not going to just go in guns blazing. It means that it's probably going to take some time. We need to create some space. We're not going to just figure it out while we're also trying to get dinner on the table. And it might mean that we need some help. So we have a great therapist that we meet with on a regular basis. It might mean that we take it to therapy. It might mean that we table it and we're like, all right, we'll come back to this after the kids are in bed.
Katherine likes to put a pin in things, and it's like the hardest thing for me. I'm like, no, I can't leave it alone. I'm perseverating. We can't wait till therapy on Wednesday. That's too far. But
it's super helpful. And I think it's made us learn to fight harder for the things that really matter and let the stuff that doesn't matter go.
Did it take a little while to get in the habit of actually doing that, or was it pretty easy?
No, it took some time.
It took some time, yeah.
Hey, it's Andrea here. I just wanted to take a moment to remind you to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite listening app. Or if you're not sure how to do that, just go to andreaisabellucas.com/podcast. And your 5-star reviews are always appreciated. When you take the time to rate and review, it helps this podcast to reach more people. Also, don't forget my book, Own It All, is coming out this March, so stay tuned. I can't wait to share it with you. Because I've heard you guys share this advice before, and I always think, I'm going to totally try that. And I'm pretty sure I haven't yet. And I'm just like, man.
Because we're so used to just sort of getting in an argument and like locking into a position, right? That's kind of how, at least, North Americans argue. That's sort of how we're always taught, right? You like go to the mattress. And so I think we just kind of do it often as a reflex. And if you've ever walked up to someone and like if you hold your hands up to someone and you let them push against your hands, guess what you'll do? You each push back against each other. It's just a natural human reflex. So it definitely takes some mental awareness, but often we'll be like in the midst of a heated argument about like which kind of jar is better for storing leftovers, something that truly does not matter. And all of a sudden one of us will be like, wait.
What number
is this for you? And we'll often just start giggling because we're like, oh, this is stupid. And then sometimes we'll have what I think is like really a dumb argument. And we'll be like, oh, wait, what number is this? And Nick will be like, this is like a 9 for me. And I'm like, oh, I had no idea. Okay. Sorry. Let me go a little bit more delicately here.
Because sometimes you're arguing about things that you don't think matter. And like, you don't even realize you're being mean because it's not mean if you're really just arguing about jars. But if there's like some primal connection to why the jars matter, then
jars remind you of a trauma from your childhood.
Right? Then like there is a 9.5 there that does matter. And the way that you argue about it is differently. Even if it's an 8 for you or a 7 for you, if it's a 9 for me, you're going to argue about it differently than we are.
Yeah.
If it's 2s.
Yeah. We get things all tangled up. Right. So like we could be arguing about, I don't know, what we're going to do for New Year's Eve, but actually maybe it's like a whole bigger discussion about like whether you value time with the family more than time with your partner, or you don't like my friends, or like who knows what other things are all bound up in that.
Or delicate creatures.
Yes. So Nick, it's hard to imagine what it was like to live the first 30-something years of your life in the wrong body. And in many ways, I'm sure it was a huge relief to finally be able to really authentically express your true self in the world. That being said, what is the biggest lesson you've learned along the way? Maybe not just in your relationship with Katherine, but in your relationships in general.
I think the biggest thing I've learned from transitioning that affects all of my relationships is that like we are all terrified. We are all terrified of like who the world sees us as and will we matter? And, does the world see us the way we see us? I think that everyone has all those same feelings that I have about like insecurities about my body and who I am and how the world sees me. I think that everybody has them. We just all have them at different levels with different triggers and different like primal threads of hurt or trauma attached to them. And so I think that it has allowed me to look at like the whole world a little bit more compassionately. And that like when someone's like an ass in traffic, like there's probably some reason for it that has nothing to do with me, that I feel like I've let go a lot of the like baggage that comes with someone being a jerk or being upset or being angry about something. I feel like I've learned that lesson from transitioning because I think that we're all just trying to figure out how to be ourselves the least painful way possible.
So you're really taking things less personally and realizing that everyone is just kind of nursing or protecting their own wounds and their own fears.
Yeah, just like I'm trying to be more genuinely myself, and it's a journey for me to find myself. I think that everyone's on that journey. It's just that mine had bigger missing puzzle pieces.
So what feels different for you now? Other than the fact that you are a lot more patient, I would say, and compassionate with others. Like, how is that showing up in your life?
It's this strange thing because I look back at the time before transitioning and the time even before Catherine, and it mostly feels like a dream. It feels like I was like acting in a movie, or I was like I look at pictures of myself pre-transition and I'm like, oh, I was wearing a very elaborate costume. Like, no wonder I looked funny. And I remember I had this really strange memory of like I had to pick out a dress for this like big party thing that I was going to in Vegas as a photographer at this big conference. And I remember just putting it on and being like, why do I look so weird in this? How come everyone else looks good in a dress? And I look like I'm putting on a costume, and I don't understand. And so I look back at that now and I'm like, oh, because I was like acting a part in a play. It doesn't mean that like I didn't genuinely love the characters in the play with me, but I was like playing a part, and like all the characters in that play are genuinely like, I love them. My ex-husband, I love, like he's, still one of my best friends, and I love my children and I love all the people that were a part of the cast and characters, but like we're not in the play anymore. Now we're like off stage.
That's got to feel good.
Yeah, it does. It's a really like it's nice to walk through the world genuinely, and I didn't realize that I was playing a part before.
I love that you spoke about having more compassion and more perspective for people who I'll just label difficult for whatever reason that might be difficult, and not that they are difficult, but maybe have a difficult time, dealing with them or whatever. We all have people in our lives or situations that we find difficult, we might find draining. You guys, I think we know each other pretty well. And I think you probably know that I'm not a fan of using labels like toxic or anything like that, because I'm with you, Nick. Like, I really think that we're all just people. We're all just vulnerable and scared. We're all expressing ourselves in often fucked up ways that may or may not be hurtful to others. And, some of us more than others, I'm sure. But I don't believe people are toxic. That being said, like, I do believe that there's certain people that you're going to have a hell of a lot more fun and productive life around versus people that you're not. And I'm just not a fan of advice that tells people like, well, just cut out all your toxic relationships. Like, yes, of course, if you're in danger, like run for your life. If you have a choice and it's like, look, life is short and my time is precious. I'm reclaiming my time. And I'm like, I'm going to go spend it with somebody who makes me happier. Like, all of that is great. And we know there are sometimes relationships that you can't just end or walk away from. There are sometimes people in your life that you wouldn't necessarily choose. Maybe they're your boss. Maybe they are, maybe they work at the immigration office and you have to go handle your paperwork. Maybe it's an ex that you're tied to because you have kids or whatever. Like, we all have those people in our lives. What advice do you have for how to deal with people that we find difficult without letting it, be traumatic or upsetting for you?
That's such a good question. And even the best advice that I could give, or the things that I've learned to do for myself, I don't know that it's always going to stop it from being upsetting or traumatic. I think part of being human and walking around with an open heart means that sometimes we get our hearts broken open, and I wish that there was something that we could do that would stop that from happening. But I actually think that accepting that is just part of the deal in some ways is the fastest road to peace. And if someone breaks your heart on a regular basis, like you said, I get the hell out of Dodge. Except that you're right. Sometimes we find ourselves, stuck or connected or committed even to having to interact with people on a regular basis who are really hard to deal with. And I think the more you can figure out how to be safe, the better it's going to be for you and for them. And what I mean by safe is obviously not just physically safe, but I think you can be in relationship with someone and still keep them emotionally at kind of 20 feet away. I think there are some people who we bring, right up into our space. We bring them into our homes, to our dinner table, right into our hearts. And then I think there are people with whom it's okay to say, I'm not cutting you out completely. We're going to still have a relationship, but there's going to be a big, bodacious, beautiful boundary between you and me. And that keeps everybody safe. So that might mean that there are certain people that you don't meet in person. You'd only talk to them on the phone. Or you don't talk to by phone, you only do email, or you'll see them twice a year, but they're not welcome to just drop by uninvited. And those kinds of boundaries can feel harsh, but the truth is they actually are what preserve the relationship. They're what let you stay in relationship with someone in a safe way.
That sounds amazing. So, Nick, what are your, I guess, strategies or go-to ways of setting healthy boundaries?
This is my worst skill.
Okay.
Just to be I'll be upright and honest. And have you heard of Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies?
Yes.
So I am an obliger. It is everything in me wants to make the people around me happy. Mm-hmm. And I also am incredibly conflict avoidant because of some of my childhood. Mm-hmm. And so I really, really don't like to disappoint people. And I really, really, really don't like conflict. So my way of dealing with that is to give and give and give, and then to avoid. So I feel like
sometimes explode.
Oh, and then sometimes I'm an exploding doormat. So there's that too. But I have worked a lot.
That sounds like something from Harry Potter, by the way.
Right? It's a little woo, surprise. I work really hard with a therapist on it, and sort of dealing with my resilience of conflict, and being what would happen if you told the truth here in this situation, and just really practicing it. It really has been a lot of practicing it with Katherine. Yeah.
Sometimes he'll say to me, baby, I love you so much that I'm going to have this argument with you.
Yeah.
And he means it. And I know he means it. And it's true.
Because I would have just been okay, you can have what you want. And then I would resent her quietly for the next 10 years. Because that's the way I like to have conflict.
Right.
It's one-sided.
Okay.
So it's all about practice for me. And it's about practice with the little things that really don't matter. It's about practice with dinner time or something like that. That's something at the grocery store. No, I really don't want that. Or I really do want this thing, or something like that. I don't know. It's practice on the little tiny things. And then all of a sudden I realize that I've built some muscle and I have the ability to do it when something matters.
I love that you're talking about building muscle. And I love, love, love the examples that you just gave, because those are the kind of unconscious behaviors that we would do and not even notice, agreeing to something that we don't actually agree to, and then resenting it and being pissed off about it. And then there's such power in actually owning that you've been doing that, and owning that you don't want that, or you're, going to start to speak up for it. And it's not one of those open and shut things. You just do it once and now you're forever changed. It really is. It's a new habit that you have to train.
It really is. And then one of the biggest ones for me that's the most funny, I'll give you an example that I can think of now, because I'm I have an example, and it's hilarious. It is telling Katherine that I don't like comedies. I don't. We were always watching these comedy TV shows, these half-hour sitcom comedy, Grace and Frankie or whatever. And I don't find them interesting. I don't like comedy TV shows.
He hates joy.
I'm just this is such a waste of my time. There's no real depth of emotion here. Give me something real. And she's you don't like comedies? What's wrong with you? And I was we've been watching all these terrible shows all this time that I hate. So that was it felt really scary for me to tell her that I don't like comedy TV shows. And so now it's the inside joke of us is I don't even like to laugh. But that felt really scary, guys.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was really scary for you to say that.
Yeah. It took me 18 months.
Oh my God. I have a thing like that a little bit. I absolutely hate going out to breakfast, and my partner really likes going out to breakfast, and I almost feel it's one of his love languages, when to get up on a Saturday or Sunday morning, and he'll just be oh, what do you have going on today? And I'm kind of a workaholic, so I usually have a lot, but I absolutely know the next question is going to be do you want to go get breakfast? And I'm just I want to tear my flesh off. I hate going to breakfast so bad. It takes forever. The food is just okay. It's not I don't know. I like going out to dinner. I don't mind lingering over dinner. There's something about going out to breakfast where I feel the day is over by the time you're done. You've wasted so much time already, and all you did was eat eggs and have a coffee, which you could have done so much faster.
That is hilarious.
And I don't really like going out for dinner as much as I like going out for breakfast, because by the time I'm done dinner, because I'm a morning person, not a night person. Dinner, you're not done until 9:30, and then you're oh my God, I have to just go to sleep right now. I am a geriatric 75-year-old man who wears loafers. Please put me to bed.
There goes my night. It's over.
And so, okay, I have to just tell you that for the holidays, Nick gave me a coupon book, like, one of those little books of vouchers.
Oh, okay.
And I was just thinking about, Andrea, if you gave one to your husband, every single one would be like, brunch,
Yes.
brunch, brunch. His were all like, he crossed off everything that was on there and wrote alone. So it's like romantic trip by yourself, dinner out on your own. And that was how he showed his love for me, was like giving me the thing that I want, which is mostly just alone time.
Oh my God.
There were 20 alone time vouchers. One of them was like, a girl's weekend away alone. Like,
I can relate with that so much, Catherine. And my coach actually gave me a really interesting distinction about that, because I absolutely need my alone time, and I get so irritable when I don't get it. And she said there's a difference between introversion and introspection. She said, like, I'm definitely an extrovert because being like out there and kind of having like being out there in my network and, going to events and like being visible and having a public life is really important to me. But she said for people who are extroverted, sometimes introspection is like incredibly critical. So like you go out and you have all this stimulus, but then you need time to process it and like, I don't know, just kind of weigh everything and have your thoughts be uninterrupted and kind of process everything. So that was important for me to learn about myself.
Yeah.
and I think I'm similar to that, only I think that I need that processing with physical movement is typically how I work. Like, and you work out so much that you probably get that automatically. But
I still have to remind myself sometimes. I still have that same like stupid ass epiphany that everyone in the world has, where you kind of dread going to work out or you try to talk yourself out of it. And then afterward, you're like, that was the best thing ever. Why don't I always remember how good that feels? Like, I still have to have that epiphany like every time.
I'm still waiting for that epiphany. I hate to work out. And usually after I work out, I feel disgusting and gross. And so I am still chasing that like workout high that I keep hearing people talk about. I secretly believe it's a myth.
Oh no, it's real. But you have to find the workout that you like. And that's the thing when people say to me like, well, what do you think is the best workout? Like running or like boxing or a bar or yoga? And I'm like, oh God, it's whatever one you actually enjoy, because it's the only thing you're ever going to do. And if you don't like it, then it's always going to be like pulling teeth. So I believe there's something out there.
All right.
But she does get that high after sex, though. She'll be like, see, we should do this more often. This was so great. And I'm like, true. Are you kidding me?
That is absolutely 100% true.
Yeah, I know. It is another one of those things that you forget how totally worth it is sometimes when you're a busy person.
Yep.
I want to completely shift gears because I wanted to take a moment to tell our listeners that Katherine does this amazing freaking like revelatory coaching group challenge intense. I don't know what you call it. You can probably say it better than me, but you do this thing called the Queen Sweep. And I did it with you once and it was so eye-opening. And I'll let you tell everybody a little bit more about what it is, because I'm sure you can explain it better than me.
Sure. Yeah, it was so much fun having you do that with us. So I run a free challenge, usually in the spring, called the Queen Sweep, where we go through and we clear out as much clutter as we can, and we bring in as much beauty as we can with the tiniest possible action. So like the most bang for your buck you can get. And then I run a 9-week, fairly in-depth group coaching program called the Queen Sweep Masterclass. And that's where we really get down and dirty and you clean out your closets and you set up systems for your paperwork and you get all of your money things running smoothly and on their own. You just basically go through your whole life and you clear out all the crap and you make it really beautiful and you set things up on autopilot so that it doesn't take so much energy from you, that things just can kind of run on their own.
And I know what you're thinking, guys. I know that you're thinking this sounds super nerdy and not like a lot of fun. But I will tell you that as someone who mocked this a little bit openly from the get-go.
Mocked it so hard.
A little bit openly. A little bit. Tiny. it is like the best thing in our lives. It is the reason why our house functions. It's the reason why our kids are like clothed in things that fit them, and like laundry is done. And it's the reason I think that we don't live in constant burnout.
That's true. I never thought about that. You're right. So the funny thing is, I am not an organized person by nature at all. Like literally,
She's a clusterfuck, guys.
I'm like your class of like right brain artist, creative, dreamer, scattered, absent-minded professor. I literally walk into a room and I'm like, I have no idea why I came in here. And anything that I see sets off this like very interesting train of thoughts in my head. Like, I don't know, I'm looking at this unicorn on my daughter's desk right now because we're recording in her room because that's how glamorous life is when you work at home. And I'm thinking about like unicorns in mythology and where does the word unicorn even come from? And then I could go down this rabbit trail of like etymology. And that is my brain all day long. And so I actually needed systems so badly just to function like a normal adult human that I created all of this stuff to just kind of get myself to like a normal working standard. And then I realized, oh, wait, there are all these other people to whom this stuff doesn't come naturally, and I could help them. Because most stuff about organizing your life is created by people who are naturally organized. And so they're like, well, and then you go in and you organize it. The end. Like that's the end of the instruction. And so if you don't know how to do that naturally, organically, you're just kind of stuck. Whereas I'm like, okay, we're going to break this down into like 17 teeny tiny, totally doable steps. And I had to learn those myself, which I think is why I love so much to take other women through it. And when you clean up that kind of physical ground level air, like stuff of your life, you open up so much mental and emotional space to think about really interesting things.
I think the reason you're so, very uniquely suited to offer it is because you're not this like, black and white, very like rigid organizer kind of personality. You are an artist. You are this like free spirit. And so the great thing is like, I'm a pretty organized person. I'm sure there's things that I got out of the Queen Sweep that helped me even get more organized in certain areas of my life. But also what you emphasize so much is like beauty and joy and like really validating the importance of those things. And that's what was so like revolutionary for me about doing the Queen Sweep, because I'm such a fucking workaholic, honestly. And I love it. Like I am not complaining even for a second. I feel like if everyone would just leave me the F alone so that I can work constantly and like hold my eyelids open, like I would probably just stay up all night. Like exactly. Like I love everything that I work on. I have 50,000 ideas a day and like I want to pursue all of them. So like I love working, and I don't always take the time to I don't ever take the time to go buy like friggin' plants for my house or things like that. And so that was a huge thing that I got out of it, was like, you have advice like taking the 3 areas that your eyes are going to fall on the most in the course of a day. Maybe that's your nightstand. Maybe it's your desk. Maybe it's inside of your car or your kitchen table. Just make them beautiful. Get all the shit off of the friggin' nightstand, like the books that you're not really going to read right now and all this stuff that's accumulated. Like just put a flower there. Just put a little plant there. Put some nice smelling like oils or something that you're going to enjoy using, or a nice little journal and a pen. That kind of stuff. I forget to allow myself space for those things in my life. And so that was really like revolutionary for me. Being in the Queen Sweep was just giving myself permission to prioritize beauty. Like that's my day-to-day experience. Like if I can just bring more beauty into, and not in an overwhelming way either, but in like small bite-sized incremental ways to have more beauty, that just gives me an opportunity to feel better and to be happier and to be a better version of myself, but also kind of just like be living just a little upgraded version of my life. I mean, just all of that.
I love hearing that. I love hearing that so much. And I think when we think about organizing our lives, it can feel so overwhelming. And I love watching it blow people's minds that like they don't have to clean their whole living room. They just have to clear off the mantle, because that's all what they're looking at like 99% of the time when they're in the room. Picking like the really important bits of real estate in our lives and just starting with those. Like you can do 10 minutes of work and it'll make you feel 8,000% better.
Absolutely. Or I can like, it might take me an extra like 4 minutes in the morning to put on eyeliner, but like, I'm going to be so glad all day that I did. Every time I walk by a mirror, I'm like, oh, look, I just look alive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I like about it, like it's great for the beauty. Great. I love it. Woohoo. But like from the other, like, perspective of it, the systems is what I love more than anything, because I lose everything. That's my like MO.
Mm.
So I like probably lose my wallet, like truly lose it for like a 24-hour period once a month, like at minimum. So I'm a loser of things. So I like the systems because it's like things like, I know where all of our kids' bathing suits are right this second. We have 5 children. Think about it just for a second. Do you know where your kids' bathing suits are if they needed to go swimming? The answer is probably not. Everyone would do that thing where you're like, crap, it's in your room somewhere. Isn't it in the drawer? Isn't it wherever?
Yeah.
We have a swim bag, and all of the swim things stay in the one bag in the linen closet all the time. When we wash the bathing suits, instead of putting them in the kids' rooms, we just put them in the swim bag. And like literally this like one system of like, how do you make this thing that you do all the time? Because our kids take swimming lessons and field trips and birthday parties and whatever. And like take it from being a stressful thing every time it happens to taking it to be like, oh, I just grabbed this bag and we're good to go. Those are the things that blow my mind with this program. And they're not done in this like weird way where you're like I know a woman who's like, to save time, all of my children only eat out of these like big bowl things, and then they sit in the center of the table and everyone only uses a spork in the same cup, and it's color coded. And so everyone only has 3 dishes every day to clean. So therefore I'm saving 37 minutes a day on cleaning dishes. And I'm like, great, wicked for you, but I'm not willing to eat out of a spork for the rest of my life. None of it is like that crap. It's not like, and it's so unreasonable that you can't actually do it. It's like, oh, everything really is made simpler and better. And
yeah, you're right. It's not, there's nothing radical. You're not asking us to,
there's nothing kooky,
no. Yeah, absolutely. I'm obsessed with it. I know I'm on your list, so I will see when it's coming, but I would totally do it again this year. I
would love that. Andrea, when I think of you and the Queen Sweep, I always remember that big epiphany that you shared with the whole group, and we all kind of had light bulbs go off where you were like, guys, who else is living in phone charger scarcity? And then like, 97 people all chimed in like, oh my God, me too. And you were like, wait, for like $36, I can go buy 4 more chargers, and then there's one in every room, and my kids will stop fighting about it.
Exactly. Like, I don't have to live like this. What am I doing?
It was so simple, and yet the payoff was so huge.
Were you guys the ones that said you have a pair of scissors in every room of your house?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I love that. It's like, yeah, what am I doing? Why do I only act like I can only have 1 phone charger? I can have like 10.
Right. And scissors are like $6 a pair. Like it's not about like, I need 6 cars. It's just scissors.
Exactly.
And cuticle nippers.
Yeah.
We have cuticle nippers on every floor because our kids are always getting hangnails.
Seriously, the things that could be luxuries don't have to cost a lot.
Right.
I just love you guys. I am obsessed with talking to you. I feel like I could spend another hour chatting with you, but I'm not going to.
The feeling is mutual.
We love you so
I'm going to
much.
let you get on with your lives. I am just so grateful that you joined, and I'm so glad we got to talk. I always come away too with like some new inspiration. So thank you for that.
Thanks so much for having us. It's such a treat to talk to you, and we're so excited about the new book.
Thank you. Yes, all of you listeners will be able to read Katherine and Nick's interview in the book when it comes out, which will be in March. And yeah, I can't wait to chat with you guys again, and have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. I'm Andrea Isabel Lucas, and this has been the Own It All podcast. Thank you so much for listening this week. If you liked what you heard, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite listening app. It really helps, and I would be so grateful. I'll be back next Wednesday with a brand new episode. See you then.